Hatchet, a story of a young man's struggle to survive in the Canadian wilderness after crashing an airplane. Most of us probably have read this novel in elementary school. After his parents finalize their divorce, Brian Robeson goes on a small Cessna aircraft to visit his father in Canada for the summer. He leaves from a small airport in Hampton, New York after his mother gives him a hatchet as a gift. Shortly after takeoff, the pilot suffers a heart attack and dies, forcing Brian to try and fly the aircraft. After drifting off course for hours, the plane runs out of fuel and crashes into a remote area of Canada. Oftentimes, as a teacher, my students always want to know where Brian actually crashed. The question of finding where Brian is located is not as easy as finding a page number for the answer. However, using close reading and some research, we now believe students can pinpoint the relative location where Brian crashed. This is the mystery of finding Brian. The first step in attempting to solve this mystery is understanding how latitude and longitude works. For many kids, this could be their first real exposure to understanding those lines drawn on maps. Fortunately for these student investigators, they live in Ohio because Columbus is the capital, which is located directly in the center of the state and almost falls perfectly on 40 degrees north and 83 degrees west. Understanding where Columbus is located will help this crew understand how to read a map correctly and the idea of relative location. They begin the process by becoming cartographers. Each one has a map of Ohio with only the counties listed. Franklin County is quickly located and marked on the map. They now make one 180-degree line and one 90-degree line through the center of Columbus to indicate the latitude and longitude coordinates. From here, it's time to add more features to this map, locating and labeling other major cities such as Cleveland, Cincinnati, Akron, Springfield, Mansfield, and so on. Next, they create major highways to show how these cities are connected. While creating the roads, they quickly notice something. A pattern seems to emerge. The interstates have a unique naming pattern. I-80, I-70, I-90. The directions, they all travel east to west or vice versa. However, I-71, I-75, and I-77, they all run north to south or vice versa. That's it. Interstates ending with even numbers go east and west. Interstates ending with odd numbers go north and south. Although this discovery doesn't reveal where Brian is located, it does seem to be important to helping these student investigators becoming better cartographers. Nevertheless, we still don't know where Brian crashed, so the search continues. The flight path. Now that the students have developed a fundamental understanding of how latitude and longitude coordinates work, it's time for our investigators to try and figure out how flight paths work. For this task, they are going to be using circular compasses, details from the novel, and new maps. This circular compass is a bit different than regular ones used in the classroom. Every degree is marked 0 through 359. Also, this compass never gets rotated. North is always north. They take some time practicing using the compass on their Ohio maps. They simulate taking off from the Springfield airport and flying to different locations located in Ohio. The crosshairs get placed on Springfield. If they were flying out of Springfield to Columbus, they realized they would have a flight path of 85 degrees. If they were flying to Cleveland, it would be 45 degrees. Next, they use their rulers to measure the length of the flight plans in miles. The scale on the map indicates 1 inch equals 40 miles. Now it's time to use their flight plan skills on the map of New York. They begin by locating Hampton, New York, which is revealed where Brian took off from. Using a simple Google search, the investigators see Hampton, New York is located at 43.5 degrees north, and 73.3 degrees west. They locate the coordinates on the map and label. However, that's where the real research begins. At this point, investigators need to turn to the novel to search for more information. They already know Brian is going to see his father because of the recent divorce. Our investigators also have read that the plane is headed to northwest Canada. However, the investigation has hit a major snag. According to the novel, once the pilot dies from a heart attack, Brian pilots the aircraft until it runs out of fuel and crashes. As the investigators begin to research how far the plane can fly on a single tank of gas, they realize something doesn't add up. The novel immediately says Brian takes off to see his father in a Cessna 406, which is described in the book as a single-engine bush plane. Yet, the student investigators can't locate the specs on a single-engine 406. It seems that the 406 has two engines, so the plane Brian flies cannot be a Cessna 406. The best the student investigators can theorize is that this must simply be a mistake on behalf of the author. The book cover looks like it might be a Cessna 172, but as one student points out, the novel says Brian is heading to the oil fields in northern Canada. Those oil fields are located in Alberta, Canada. Based on their research, it seems highly unlikely that a Cessna 172 would make that long of a flight over such a vast terrain. Therefore, they speculate it's probably really a Cessna 206 that is flown by Brian. Why is the 406 versus 206 so important? Understanding the single-engine plane allows the student investigators to be more accurate with their research of location. The planes have different engines, therefore giving a better idea of the possible miles the Cessna could fly on a full tank of gas. This gives them a radius for the distance. The investigators determined the maximum range for that aircraft would be approximately 630 miles. Now, these investigators use a standard circle compass. Using a new expanded map of both New York and Canada, they use a new scale. Every inch equals 200 miles. This means they need to create a circle with a radius of 3 inches. For the very first time, they can visualize the possible area where Brian crashed. They are astonished by the size. One student wants to know how large the search area would actually be. It is at this point they use the formula for circle. Area equals pi times radius squared, or in other words, area equals 3.14 times 600 squared. That's over 1,000,000 square miles. At this point, Brian could have even flown to their own hometown of Springfield. Now they have their distance and the possible search area. But Brian's exact flight plan is still unknown. It's back to the novel to do some more close reading for clues. Finally, after feverishly looking, they come across a page with 3 different numbers. Could one of these be the flight path? 342, 22, or 70? They read closer. They immediately eliminate 70 because the text says 70, which he only thought might be the altimeter. From the previous research and building a flight simulator, the team recalls that an altimeter uses 3 hands. The longest one shows the feet in hundreds. The short, stubby hand represents feet in the thousands, and the shortest one represents feet in the 10,000s. Investigators can't help but think back to their math skills and place value. If Brian was seeing 70, it meant the aircraft was around 7,000 feet above sea level. This also seems to match information they closely read at the end of Chapter 1. That leaves 342 or 22 for a possible flight plan. They chart each flight plan on their maps. They quickly notice 2 strange things about 22 degrees. First, they explain that 22 points in a northeast direction, which is opposite of what is revealed to them in the novel. The oil fields are in northwest Canada. One investigator also recalls reading that the pilot hit the right rudder when he had the heart attack, which altered the plane's course. How far? It's still yet to be determined. The second odd thing they discover with the flight plan of 22 degrees is that it flies directly over a major city, Quebec. Flying over any city is never mentioned in the book, according to the investigators. They indicate that in the text, while on the radio, Brian's communication breaks up. They believe if he had been flying over Quebec, Brian would have remained in contact with the person on the radio, but his radio cuts out. They theorize it's from being out of range. Therefore, they now determine 22 is out of the picture. That means they've done it. They found Brian Robeson's flight plan. Not only do they know the maximum amount of distance he could have flown, they also know the direction he flew. It's time to travel in that direction, 342 degrees. Despite knowing his flight path, these student investigators can still narrow down his relative location by using the last clue from the novel they found. All their research and calculations conclude that this path could be up to 630 miles in length. That's a lot of ground to cover, and it would be nearly impossible for searchers to locate such a small aircraft, especially in such a heavily wooded area. They need something to help them narrow down the search even further. Something visual that could be used as a landmark. In the novel, Brian sees a unique L-shaped lake with curved corners. He attempted to land his aircraft on that lake. The shape of the lake is so unique and different, it can be used now as a visual reference as we travel along Brian's flight path. Now they can determine where Brian crashed. All they must do now is track the flight path and look for an L-shaped lake with curved corners in close proximity. The investigators travel along the path. The L-shaped lake, it must be close to this path. But where? All their research, close reading, learning new skills has set them on this course. They continue to travel the flight path. Many bodies of water can be seen, none of which, however, resemble the L-shaped lake with curved corners. Student investigators now begin to worry. They are getting close to the maximum distance the Cessna could have traveled on that one tank of gas. They think they may have overlooked something in the novel, perhaps some small detail. They wonder, was their math right? Did they use the compasses correctly? What did they miss? No L-shaped lake can be seen in proximity to this flight plan. It seems that the search for Brian Robeson needs to be called off. It appears Brian is lost in the woods forever. However, just then, slightly to the west of the flight plan, an investigator sees it. They see a small body of water. It's an L-shaped lake. The lake's description matches the book's description perfectly. It's close to the flight plan and very close to the maximum distance the plane could have traveled. Located at 51.52099 degrees north and 76.97971 west, the lake sits. This is the lake. This is where Brian Robeson crashed the aircraft. Student investigators have finally solved the mystery of finding Brian. After grueling days and hours of researching, learning how to create new maps, close reading, and a little luck, these student investigators now can breathe a sign of relief. It's taken over 30 years to solve this mystery, and all their hard work and perseverance has paid off. It's a job well done. However, now the real adventure begins. Surviving the crash was just the first step in Brian's journey. Now a new mystery emerges. How will Brian endure his time in the woods? We will just need to keep reading to find out.